Hello and welcome to another video tutorial. Today we're going to touch on some retouching techniques. In this case we're going to look at different techniques for removing unwanted objects, in this case people, from the leftmost image, straightening images, and how to do other lens corrections. So let's jump right in and get rid of all those people back here. They are rather small, so this should work perfectly. We are going to use the healing brush tool. I'm not quite sure when Photoshop introduced it, but I'm going to show you a different method later on for those that don't have the spot healing brush tool. So I'm going to grab this tool and be sure to have it on content aware, because this is where Photoshop will be calculating what should go in here based on what is around. So basically you can find here, put the size on, the hardness, spacing, whatnot, and I'm just going to go and show you when you go over something that you want to get rid of, then it starts to calculate and it actually does get rid of it. Usually it does it a little more nicer here. Here we go. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And you can go over all of these like this, and if you don't know the original, then you're probably not going to know that there's something wrong. So if you've got an older version of Photoshop and you don't have this tool, then you can also go in with the clone stamp tool, and you can use any brush for the clone stamp. It's a brush that uses one spot in the image as a source and then clones it to where you put your cursor. So I'm going to use this one, less hardness, a little bit bigger, so that we're going better around. So this is what happens if you just click. So it tells you that you need to alt click. So I'm going to zoom in to 100%, and then we can choose, by alt clicking, choose a spot here and start to clone out the people. And when you get to an edge like this, you take another edge and you clone over. So this way you get a rather smooth transition, and you can do this for a lot of things, and sometimes it's going to be harder because here you would need to fill with the background of the tree and here with the water. So what you could do is to just take this edge and then go in here and use this edge to go over. Of course it's not completely perfect. You can go in and get some more definition like this, and with a little bit of practice this works just fine. You can easily do this rather fast. Another common problem is a leaning horizon, or lines that should be straight that are not. When you tilt your camera at an angle, this happens very often and it just looks kind of off. And it's something that you can easily correct in Photoshop. Go up here. I already chose it earlier. It's behind the eyedropper tool in this version of Photoshop. In older versions I think it was on its own somewhere down here. You may have to search for it on your own. But basically it always does the same. And for this demonstration I'm going to unlock this background layer by double clicking on it and just saying OK. This makes a normal layer instead of a locked background. And now I'm going to use the tool and just use it on one line that you know that should be straight. It also works on vertical lines, but in this case I'm going to use the actual horizon here. When I can see it like this, it's always better. You can also use the points to the left and to the right to adjust your line. Once you're satisfied, you just go up here and say straighten. Now what it did is, you can see it here in the history, it rotated your canvas, and if you have it on the background layer, this is going to be in the background color, so I usually prefer to do it on a new layer, and then it crops. And just to note that it rotates the whole canvas, it just doesn't just rotate the layer, it rotates the canvas, so you should always do this before using it in a manip or something. So basically this is it, quick fix. I think in previous versions of Photoshop it just went to the step before to this one, and then you had to manually crop. And this you can do using the crop tool and just choosing whatever you like here, just cropping out what is too much. And then just be sure to put it on height if you think you may need the extra bits, and if you don't need the extra bits you can put it on delete. But I usually always have it on height, because otherwise when I'm doing my manips I may cut stuff off that I really do need it after all. So basically like this. So next up we're going to take a look at this picture, and here you can see that the lines are somehow falling toward the top. It's like it's drifting, it's falling to the back, because this was shot with a wide angle lens, and what you may want to do in such a case is to use filter, lens correction, to get these lines straight, because here you can see from here, this line it should be straight, and this line, these lines, they should all be straight, and this should be straight. This should not be narrower up here than here, because in reality it isn't. So what you get here is also here the straighten tool, which does the very same as before. This you can use to get one straight line, for example here. In this case it's not much. Then go to custom, and there you have a lot of different options, and I'm just going to show you what they do. For example, this one removes the distortion that a wide angle lens can cause. So you can also use it to get some nice effects, of course, but it is meant to be used to get rid of these curvy kinds of lines. So don't overdo it. In this case maybe 4. No, now it's too much. Now it's curving in the other direction. I think it's not curving all that much. So let's just leave it like this. Here is color corrections, which I'm not going to use now. And here you can remove a vignette. Now you can see that the edges are getting lighter. So in case you have some vignette removal to do, you can use this to darken it or lighten it. Of course you can use it as an effect as well. And then down here is what really helps us in our case. It's the vertical and the horizontal perspective, and now you can see that it's going back and back and back, which is exactly what we don't want, which is what we want to correct. So if we go in this direction a little bit, there, now you can see that it's going on straight lines again. Of course it doesn't work 100%. It's always better to get it right in camera, but sometimes you need a little bit of a correction, and here you can get the same to the left and to the right if you didn't stand right in the middle of the gate, but I think we don't need that. But this one we do. A little bit of this perspective is nice also to have in manips, because if you stand in front of a building you always get the vanishing points up here, and everything seems to be going toward one very high up vanishing point. So getting rid of it completely may also look strange, especially now. If you cut out this part, then you may have these coming out toward you. So this is a little too much. If I want it as a stock image, I think this would be good. So now the last thing that you can do here is to set the angle. This is to set the scale at the bottom, and here you can set the angle. You should, in my opinion, not set the scale above 100% because it's going to bloat your image, and because your image is a raster image, this will have a negative effect on your image quality. So rather don't. And this is the angle, and in this case you can see that it already set an angle because we used the straighten tool for this. So I'm going to click OK. It's going to render, and here we go. And now you can see the before and the after. So it's straightened, and it's, yeah, maybe not perfect, because here it still seems a little off to me. But with a bit of tweaking, you could use this Lense Correction filter to get your images corrected at least. Now, one more thing that I want to show you is that, especially in the newer versions of Photoshop, you can also, to get rid of something, use a selection and then go to Edit, Fill, and then from the drop down choose Content Aware. Again, I'm not quite sure when they implemented this. In the older versions this is not possible to do, but as soon as it says Content Aware in the menus, you are going to have this option also. So you don't need to use this healing brush, but you can use selection as well. And of course you can refine your selection up front as much or as little as you like. So this is basically what it has done. Now Control D to deselect, and here you can see it pretty much did a good job. The only thing that I should not have selected probably is this part, this one, because it made some sort of step in here. But for anything that you're going to be doing, this should be rather nice. Again, Edit, Fill, Content Aware, and gone. More or less. Sometimes you need to do it twice, sometimes you need to do some refining with the brush, or, well, in this case that didn't work so well, or maybe with the clone stamp tool, but basically this is it. Last but not least, this all looks very easy and fast, but of course sometimes it's not going to work out as well as you would hope, and then you may need to do a little bit of, well, tricking or manual adjusting. So for example, I would guess that if I, wrong tool, I guess that if I try to heal this one out, it may, yes, it's going to go overboard with filling, and in that case the only thing that is left to do is either do a really tight selection and try it like that, try it multiple times, and maybe the clone stamp tool is the only thing that really actually helps. So if you go down here and just get the thing down. And of course, in this case, you can see that this does not fit with that. And then I'm going to undo this a little. You can see that here you should stop, and maybe you can clone something from here. But this is something that will take just a little while and a little trial and error to get it right, because of course this is also taking into account the shadows and the different surfaces, and here this should be rather easy, especially in the newer Photoshop versions where you get to see what you're doing. So this way, this is good enough. This is also not too shabby, and then it gets really difficult. And then sometimes the only thing that really helps is to start to do it as much as you can with your tools, and then grab a brush and use the brush to get it out. And of course then you're missing the texture, but depending on how closely you're going to look at this in the end, it may just be enough and work. But this is basically what I would do. If I were to use this, I would try to get rid of the handles, because honestly, who wants to see a princess and then in front of their castle or something and then have those in? No one. So basically this is it. And the same of course also goes for these nice little buggers. There's going to be some imagining to be done, because you need to find a way to make this fit in with the rest, and more or less guess what is behind it, and no algorithm in this world can help you with that actually. But maybe something like this and some more refining. Also getting rid of the shadow a little, but more or less, and then some like this, and then some more. But yeah, so this is basically everything you're going to need to fix your images. In terms of color, I'm going to do a separate tutorial. I think it would just make this one explode. So I hope you got something out of this, and see you next time. Bye.